It's preparing the live stream right now. And we're just gonna wait for it to finish setting up. Wait for anyone joining in.
Word.
Okay. And we should be up. Awesome. Okay, hello everyone and welcome to the live stream. This is Meryl with Akron Soul Train. And tonight I am joined by Akron Soul Train resident artist, Dominic Moore-Dunson, and along with Chris Coles, Maya Nicholson, Kevin Parker Jr., and Floco Torres to discuss the making of the multimedia project inCOPnegro. I am so excited to learn more about this ambitious undertaking. Akron Soul Train is an artist residency program connecting and empowering the community and artists by granting fellowships that provide resources for all creative disciplines to foster a more vibrant Akron. Before we get going, I'd like to thank our sponsors for their continued support: the GAR Foundation, Akron Community Foundation, the Ohio Arts Council, Leonard Family Foundation, the Brennan Family Foundation, the Knight Foundation, the Char and Chuck Fowler Family Foundation, and the Corbin Foundation. Anyone viewing, please feel free to comment below with questions, and we will get to them towards the end of the program. And also, please comment on any of our videos, how you like this type of virtual programming, so we can continue to bring thoughtful and creative content to you all. Okay, so I think I will go ahead and hand it over to Dominic now.
Hey everybody out there. Meryl, first I want to say thank you and to Akron Soul Train for giving us this time in this space. Also for awarding me the fellowship. It's been really integral in helping put this work together that we've been working on since July in this first phase of research and development. And so for today, what we thought we'd do is just have a wide open conversation, just like we do in the studio, between us 5 artists about what we've been making. And also what we're excited about going forward after this initial 6 months. So I want to start by doing a bit of a round robin style for introductions, and I'll pass the mic first to Maya.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maya Nicholson. I am an actor, director, playwright, community activist and organizer, and instructor. And I'm excited to be a part of this project because it really touches on what it is to be not only a woman within a society that is predominantly run by a male structure, but also being a Black woman amongst Black men.
Thanks, Maya. Kev, how about you?
Hey, so I'm Kevin. I danced professionally in the dance theater for about 7 years before making the decision to go on a more independent contractor work of things. And with that being said, I'm involved in this project. I've been looking forward to it. Nothing about the rehearsal process and just the conversations that we have been short of amazing. Like, everything is incredible, and I love the message that we're trying to go for here, which obviously we're going to talk more about soon.
Thanks, Kev. Mr. Chris Coles.
How's it going, y'all? My name's Chris Coles. I'm the saxophonist / general musician guy in this project. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to work with Dominic and all these amazing Black artists in the area. Yeah, I'm just honored to be a part of it.
Thanks, Chris. Floco.
Hey, everybody. Floco Torres, hip-hop musician, producer, graphic designer. I do some work in community outreach and audience development as well. And to just echo everybody else, have been really excited to be a part of this project with this group of artists. And it's been it's been a challenging, it's been a stretching process, and just excited to talk more about it and present what we've been working on shortly. So.
Sure, thank you. And I'm Dominic Moore-Dunson. I'm a dancer and choreographer here in Akron, Ohio. I'm also one of the co-founders of the Akron Black Artists Guild. And I thought I'd start today by talking about the project, where it came from, before I started kind of facilitating some questions with our friends here. And I'm sure they'll have questions to put out there as well. Just a reminder, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat, and Meryl will let us know what those are at any point, and we'll try to answer them. So inCOPnegro started in 2020, when we were like deep into the world of quarantine. And we also all realized kind of this racial uprising of America happened in 2020 with the death of George Floyd and the murder of George Floyd, excuse me. And during that time, me and my wife were pregnant with our son, Maverick. And it was the first time in my life I had realized that I have to teach someone about police. And up until that point, I had always had my own interactions with police, good and bad. And I had created my own fear around police for obvious reasons. Like in our country, if you're on social media over the past 5 to 7 years, it's been really tough to be a Black person in the social media space because of all the various deaths of Black people that have happened. So I'm wrestling with this idea of having to tell my unborn kid about police. How soon do I do that? What do I say? I don't know what to say. So I started going on my own personal journey, talking about and asking people, well, what do you tell your kids about police? And the general consensus was you teach them how to get home, which I fully understood and I fully get because I was raised the same way. But I felt like there was something deeper and richer than just those words and that way of thinking. So I realized during the process that there's really something here, that I could go across many different types of people, avenues to ask people about how they define safety in their own lives as that relates to the police, and especially in the Black community. So that's where we kind of started. And the project has kind of 2 elements. The first element is what you see here. It's the 5 of us. And we're creating this stage show that's going to be evening length. We don't know how long it's going to be. We don't necessarily know exactly what it is, but we're working really hard to figure that out. And the second element is a podcast that's going to be called inCOPnegro Black and Blue. So from all of these various interviews, we're going to come out with small kind of limited series seasons, kind of watching the arc of me talking to all these people. And by the end of the podcast, the idea is I will have kind of created and concocted my own version of what I will say to my children one day about police. So that's kind of the story arc of that podcast. But what's really interesting is part of that podcast process has been informing what we've been doing in the studio. So because it's been informing what we've been in the studio and we've been talking about some of these podcasts, I wanted to start our discussion today by asking everybody on this call the first question I ask everybody in every interview of the podcast. And we can just go popcorn around, say what you feel. But the question is, how would you define safety for yourself?
I mean, I'll jump in. I think what I've learned throughout this rehearsal process and talking with this group is I didn't think about safety before this project in the way that we have spoken about it. Safety has always been a thing that you identify when it's time to identify it. You don't think about it beforehand. So safety for me has always been, up until this point, safety has been this thing of, yeah, when it's time to talk about it, it's real. And now there's no debating, there's none of that. It's like, okay, we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to do that. As opposed to be able to be forward thinking about it. That's kind of what I've learned so far.
Yeah, I think, go ahead, Maya.
I was just gonna piggyback off of what Floco said. It's funny, and I said this earlier, just a woman's perspective on things. In terms of like thinking of safety, it's always on the forefront of my mind, just because there are different elements of safety that I need to think about. I need to be safe just as a woman and protecting myself and my space and protecting my energy and who I'm putting myself in relationship with and who I'm encountering, but then also being safe within my community. And I think that, and I can't speak for everyone, but I can speak for myself. I have dealt with a battle of what does it look like to feel safe within my community, in a general sense. Where do women, specifically, where do Black women fall in this line of safety amongst really anyone? Where do we fall in line there? And unfortunately, it feels like it's kind of the bottom of the totem pole. So realizing that I need to define safety for myself, even if that means stepping away from people, even if that means making myself feel comfortable in an uncomfortable situation, whether that's stepping forward or stepping back, understanding what it means for me to protect myself.
Yeah, also kind of piggybacking off of what Floco was talking about, for me, it wasn't until we started this project that I realized that what I tend to think about is what makes me feel unsafe rather than what is safety itself. So that's been a lot of work there, because even listening to the interviews, that being the first question, I've always been like, man, I still don't know how to answer that question. So it just feels like, when I think about all the things that make me feel unsafe, it's a lot more than just physical. Like, it goes past, me feeling like I might be physically harmed or something like that. It's also a financial, a mental, spiritual, like it's a all-encompassing like wellness for me now. And just realizing that like there's more than one thing besides physical harm that can make you feel unsafe.
Yeah, I think my answer is going to be a little different than everyone's, just because, well, it's similar in the sense, like when you think about like what Floco was saying, like it's not something that I ever thought about. And Kevin said that like it's, I know the things that make me feel unsafe. And I think about, I don't think there's ever a time in my life that I ever felt safe. Like I don't really 100% feel, considering, where I grew up. And I guess I found those moments to be fleeting. It wasn't consistent. And then when you think about like the universe and the place that we live, so far we're one of, as far as we know, one of the only species to live on the planet. And at any given moment, we could all be wiped out by our own means or by some asteroid hitting the planet or some, I know I'm like getting super meta, like, but that's when I think of on many levels, I don't think it's ever been really consistent enough for me to like actually answer it in a way that, other than to say it's fleeting. It's
super scary.
Yeah.
The idea that safety is fleeting is pretty unsettling.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to think about, because like if I define safety for myself based on this project, the only word I can think of is complex. Because there's something about safety that's like, I feel like I've learned that in our world, for some people to feel safe, it means other people have to feel unsafe. So like, then I don't know how to define it, right? Because if everybody can't have it at the same time, you start asking yourself, does it really exist for everybody? Or does it have to kind of like hot tomato itself around? can everybody have it at once, or can only some people have it and you have to trade it for something, right? Which just gives me that like vibe of like selling your soul to the devil kind of thing. Like, if you want to feel safe, then that means you have to do this. So I think that's been something that's really, and through this whole process, something about safety that started to feel really haunting to me in a lot of ways, because of what stuff we're doing. So one of the things I've been really curious about, and I don't think we've ever talked about this, but I'm curious about, for whoever wants to answer. So I individually asked each one of you to be a part of this project. So when I looked at you and said, hey, I want to do this project, it's called inCOPnegro. And it's about this. What were kind of your first impressions and thoughts before we ever got into the studio?
For me, it was like, I don't even care what it is. If Dom's on it, then I'm on it. You know what I mean? If Dom asks me, I'm gonna do it because I just really like your work. That's the crux of it. I was just like, yeah, Dom's dope. Floco's one of the greatest rappers of all time, in my opinion. He don't get that credit, but I don't know. I like some of his bars better than Ye's. And I've seen Kevin work with Dom, and I'm just now meeting Maya, but the first day, it was like, yeah, these people are dope. That was my first impression. Like, I was just excited because you asked me.
Leave it up to Chris to make us all feel good.
No. Get out of here.
Yeah, I think for me, it was, there is a lot of tie into what Chris just said. Like, obviously I'm very familiar with your work, considering how, we're usually working together. But, so not only do I get a sense of like what it is that you think about and how much thought you put into the things that you produce. Obviously, there's going to be, that's part of me that's like, any way I can support that, I'm down to do it. But also just realizing like this is very new. So just hearing you like, okay, I have this thing that's focused around like safety, but also what I want to try is how can we get this with not just a dancer on stage, but an actor on stage, a rapper on stage, a musician on stage, all at the same time, and all part of the story at the same time, like not just being an accessory, for lack of a better word, but like just everyone is so integral to the piece and you're watching it happen in real time. I was kind of like, that's new. How are we going to make that happen? But also obviously so curious to see how we can figure that out. And I think we're doing a really great job of it so far.
Yeah, I know I definitely wanted to focus 2020 and 2021 on work that had to do with social justice, work that had to do with something that is important to me and not just like, oh, this is a nice thing to do on stage, And working with you previously at the Civic was a great way to like introduce me into like your realm of thinking. And as soon as you said inCOPnegro, I was like, oh, bet, let's go. Like, we'll talk about the details later. Yes, the answer is yes. So it was, I'm all for it. And like, this is the work that's important. Like, this is the work that means something, you know what I mean? Something that not only ties into who you are innately as a person, but the change that you can create for the next generation and like actually seeing change and not just talking about it. Yeah.
I think, Dom, I haven't known you for too long. It's been maybe like a year or two, and we've known each other in different facets of the community, from nonprofit to artistry and stuff like that. And your talent is your talent. Like, there's nothing that can be said for that. Like, it is what it is. But most of the conversations I've had with you have been, they've been challenging and consistent. And those are the things that I kind of stick out to me, like, we'll talk about it. When you first told me about this project, it was like, we didn't talk about it again till like 4 or 5 months later. And it was still in my mind. So we were like, yeah, I got this inCOPnegro thing. And I was like, no, I remember. Like, that's like, I don't know what that is, but it stuck out in my brain. And I don't know if you remember, but early in the pandemic, we were talking about a completely different thing. We were talking about mixing music and dance. And I was making these songs that were very to the time of the pandemic. And we didn't do any of that stuff. The inCOPnegro stayed in there. So I just, like, anytime I feel like Dominic comes to any of us, it's always like, the talent is first, but then it's a consistently challenging conversation. Yeah, and I was like, this kind of makes me nervous. This kind of makes me feel like, yeah, I don't really know, but I'm along for the ride. So that was kind of how I felt about it.
That's what's up. Now, I appreciate y'all. I think one of the reasons I reached out to all of y'all is, like I said, first, talent, but then also people who like understanding the making of art is also at the center of community organizing. And those two things aren't different from each other. And I had to find artists who understood that first so that we could create together. I love that the name is part of the reason that made y'all go, oh, I'm doing this. I don't know what we're doing, but I'm about to do it. I wish everybody felt that way, but it's definitely, it made me realize I made the right name. So speaking about rehearsals, I want to know for you, because Kevin talked about, we have an actor, jazz musician, hip hop musician, 2 dancers. What has been the biggest surprise to you about this rehearsal process in making this work? I can tell you mine real quick. I had an idea of what I thought this was going to be, and it's not that at all. Like, I had this really clear vision of what we were making was supposed to be about. And I got us in the room and everyone started showing the various things we were working on. And I was like, I need to let go of any set expectations I created in my brain about what this piece should look like. And it's turned into something way better and completely different.
I kind of have 2 things. Initially coming into the space and like, Dominic, I know you, but I hadn't like really seen you full out dance. Like Floco, I know you, but like I've seen your videos. I hadn't seen you like, you know, hit the mic in person. And Kevin and Chris were new to me. So coming into the space and like seeing how talented these Black folks are in this space was just beautiful. Like, I remember multiple times being just like stunned and loving it. So first and foremost, just like the fact that y'all are all dope and talented and like invested in your craft. But then seeing how all of these different parts actually do fit together, because we talked about the concept of all of these pieces of art that we had created that were all separate, that were beautiful separate, but then seeing how they are very integral in creating this overall piece was really interesting, and seeing how this thing, oh, this is great, maybe it goes here and maybe it goes with this instead of being here. You know, it was just that puzzle piece or piecing things together was very nice.
Similar to that, but I think I've just enjoyed that we all came into the space and no one was like, and Dominic made this very intentional from the beginning. You're not just a theater artist here. You're not just an actor, director, playwright. You're not just a rapper or a hip hop musician. You're not just a saxophonist. I'm not just a choreographer, dancer. We're all gonna stretch each other and be open to whatever happens in this room. And I remember one of our early rehearsals, Dominic asked the questions like, what do you want to get out of this? And that was the first thing I said. I was like, I want to be stretched in this room. Like, I want to, don't tell me that I'm a rapper and I'm supposed to just fit here, because I'm way more than that. So this is the opportunity for all of us to be who we are, but be more than what we are. And I feel like that intention was set early on. And honestly, I was kind of surprised at it, because I thought coming in, I was like, all right, I got to write some verses and, you know, it's going to be what it is. And that has happened. And some beats have been made, but the way we went about it was not just, this is the only thing you can do. You know, we all got movement in this. And, you know, I don't tell y'all in rehearsals, I'm like, I'm super nervous because, like, I'm out of my realm a little bit with this. But I think that was a big surprise to me, is that it was immediately was broken down of, we all are going to be whatever is needed in this room. So.
Yeah, piggybacking off of that, like, I think just the best surprise to me is just how synergistic everything has been working. Like, everything, like, we are all in the room, and what we do complements one another so well, even though the mediums in which we do our things are so different. So I thought that was just, watching that together, just unlike anything I've experienced before. And also just watching how, you know, talent aside, one of the things that really got me was just that we kind of came in like, okay, like, we heard the spiel from Dominic, like, this sounds really, really interesting. I don't know what exactly is going on, but hey, we'll find out. Just going in with an open mind, and also just how quickly everyone was willing to, like, let's get into the deeper layer. You know, we can talk about the superficial thing, like, as big as that is, we've seen enough conversation about that. Let's talk about the thing that's deeper underneath that, and just how willing and eager we are to talk about that, I think, is one of the best surprises for me.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. Accept it was another thing too. You know, like, there's so many times where you walk into a situation and you feel like you have to prove that you're dope. And I never, like, from day one, walked into a rehearsal and felt like I had to do that. You know, all I had to do is do my part and be selfless and be a slave to the moment and let things kind of happen. And that's the ideal musical situation or artistic making situation, in my opinion, when you just have to be present in order for the thing to happen, you know? So yeah, it's amazing. It's dope.
Yeah, and I think, Chris, there's something to that, this idea of bringing your whole self into the rehearsal space, and kind of like going back to Floco saying, not just bringing like that part of you think people want from you, right? Just the choreographer, just the dancer, theater artist, hip hop musician, jazz musician, but bringing Maya, Kevin, Floco, Chris to the studio, and then using the skills we have to decide what's going to happen next, right? And I think that's, for me, hasn't been a surprise, because when I kind of brought us together, that's what I thought would happen. Like, there's always the little nervousness the first day of rehearsal. It's like the first day of school, and you're like, I don't know how we're going to get along. But then you see people start doing their thing they do really well. And then you start watching other people appreciate them the way you appreciate them. And then there's this feeling of like, we all belong here. So that I definitely, Chris, definitely love and feel that feeling accepted, because there's nothing like when you feel accepted in the studio and what that will birth creatively. I think one of the biggest surprises for me is actually how emotional it is being in the studio when we're working together. Like, it's just, I haven't had a whole lot of times in my career where I'm in the studio of only Black artists making something super important. And in such a collaborative way where people's egos aren't in the room, but everyone's just like, what do we need to do to kind of make this happen? I'm thinking about one moment, y'all probably remember this. We were working on the transition of getting Floco to Maya to start her moment in the corner. And for those watching, if you come December 8th to our Work in Progress showing, you know what I'm talking about. But it was the moment where the voice switched from Floco to Maya and she started her monologue. And we were all covering her. And in that moment, when she started talking, like I literally like, you know, that feeling you get when you can feel tears coming, because like that moment just had, there's so much potency in that moment. And I was like, and this, what we're doing has so many of those. And I keep finding myself like Maya, sometimes just watching like, damn, you know what I mean? Like this is from the inside, I feel it. I don't know what it looks like on the outside, but from the inside, I feel something important, right? And I don't know, maybe sometimes that's more important at first is for you to feel something before somebody else feels something, right? And I feel that, and that's, I'm surprised by how much it is.
Bro, that first time we did that joint, and she was like, "Look at me." I was like, "Oh, damn." Wrecked, bro. Wrecked. It was like, oh man, I want to look back, but I can't. That's not what we supposed to be doing.
Oh my goodness. So here's the opposite. What's been the hardest part of the process?
Listen, not putting a beat to everything. That has been the hardest part for me. Y'all know I have been very vocal about just been having trouble with my verses, like remembering them in a way that like I've been doing professionally for 15 years. But it's different. Like there's so many other things that I need to be thinking about. This process is so rewarding, but also so challenging for me because now my verse is a part of a story connected to a character that I have to be tapped into at all times. Maya, I am not an actor. Like I am not at all. All of the commercials that I have done that are on YouTube, they were like, do your Jersey accent. Like that was how I got those commercials. And it was awful. It was super awful. I was pointing at the camera. It was terrible. So that's been the most challenging for me is like I've tapping into like what I'm really good at and what I'm professional at. But this is a new level. Like, okay, you got to remember this in a different way. There's no beat to latch on to. There's no band to latch on to. There's no crowd in the same way to latch on to. Some of those elements are there, but they're in a different way. And then now I'm accountable to more people on stage in a way that I'm normally not. You know what I'm saying? Like I got to know where I'm supposed to be, because if I'm not, Kev's part is thrown off, or you know, Dominic got to help me in real time to move. So that's been the most challenging part for me.
That choreography, doc. That choreography got your saxophone player all crossed up, man. I can't do it. It's hard, doc. It's hard. Yeah, that and the Floco, like no beats, like having to play like a chorale or something like that and not have music behind it to like help you elevate, like you doing it all yourself. It's really, 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 really hard. I mean, I've done a few solo shows, but I've always had pedals and like things like that to make that happen. So it's like easy. I don't have to do that much. But to do it on my instrument by myself is literally impossible. It's almost impossible. You gotta dig Hokage level deep, you know, to reference Naruto, to figure that stuff out and make it happen, man. Is stretchy, you know?
Yeah.
You gotta call him that gospel Pokemon. I think the most challenging thing that I've experienced through this process, and it's interesting because like I do musicals, So this was like, oh, this is dope. Like, I'm familiar with this. No. This is very different. And I think it's because, look, I'm gonna say the same thing. It's that choreography, but let me tell you why. It's because our dancers are so talented that they want to push us and make sure that we're on point. They're like, look, we are professionals, this is skill, we got y'all, this is what we're doing. Yeah, like, but also just like coming back from the pandemic and just being comfortable in your own body and your own skin and like performing again is challenging in itself. And then doing a piece that you are so invested in that you're like putting everything that you have into, but then you also have like work and this other gig and on the board for this, and I've got to think about this show and like a fellowship and this grant that I've got to write. And it's like, I want to give everything I have to this because I believe in it so much. So I got to make sure that I'm on point with my choreography. As long as I'm good, we good.
I think for me, probably the hardest part was, well, still is, honestly, is just the concept of time that we're playing with, and just how, like, you know, everyone's got a story going on at the same time, but also in those couple seconds that you see that person, it might be a flashback, or it's just like, and how to communicate that through, whether that's anything from, like, you know, me physically dancing or just the way that I walk or look at somebody. Just, it's like almost, and not that it's never, I don't have this experience before, but it feels very different to, like, literally everything that I am doing is telling a story, and how do I keep that story to support my story and not necessarily use that to influence someone else's story, or like play the accessory to someone else's story, has been the most challenging part.
Yeah, and I'll say from just my vantage point, as from choreographer's vantage point, one of the things that's been challenging, but all you have helped so much, is we always keep talking about how do we make sure this doesn't look like a variety show. It's not like, here are the dancers, and then here's a hip hop musician, and here's theater, and here's the jazz, but it's like all like one melting pot telling multiple stories with one large arc at the same time. And how do I be thinking about what Floco is doing in a moment at the same time I'm thinking about what Chris is doing in a moment, as that relates to what I'm supposed to be doing, but also how is Kevin reacting and how does it affect Maya? So it's kind of like, it's like these 5 points on the star that are constantly moving, but they're always connected, is how I've been thinking a lot about it. And I've spent many a nights up late with my newborn, like rocking and thinking about inCOPnegro, like, how does Floco, oh, that don't work because he wouldn't do, like, and it's just like constantly going in my mind, because to me, every single portion of this topic that we're talking about is so important. The way we represent that and what we're doing is that every second means something. There's never like off time where like you can kind of just like walk and kind of drop out the piece. Every single second means something. And especially because we built the piece in the round, there is no off stage. So you're always on. So you're always somebody. You're always communicating with somebody and doing something with somebody. And for me, that's been really, really challenging to think about it in the round as opposed to like a proscenium stage where I can think about depth and things differently. And like, okay, let's have them go off stage so they can get a break. There is no break, right? Partly because there's no break from this conversation for us as Black people. So it's kind of why we set it up that way. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so one other thing I've been really curious about is we've all had the chance to listen to some of these interviews that will become these podcasts. Is there anything in any of the interviews in particular, like something you can remember the story or anything that stood out to you that has influenced what you've been doing, or something that's just staying with you in your brain, and maybe we're not using it now, but it's something that you're hopeful for the future that we will talk about or use?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing, or one of the things that I found myself walking away with and thinking about the most, is the interview with Kemp Boyd, where he dropped a couple of things in there, but one of them just being like, when talking about Black versus Blue, it's just like, well, both of us are dehumanized based on the color of that we have, like whether that's Black people being dehumanized just because of the skin color, or like officers being dehumanized just because they're in uniform. That was one of those things that kind of like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess you're right. And while there is a little part of me that, you see what's going on in the media, you can't help but to feel like angered by it all, and then realizing like, oh well, actually, and we talk about this in our conversations in the show, it's like, well, actually both things are kind of going through there's actually a lot of overlap in what we're seeing, and we have to actually be willing to acknowledge that and meeting each other where we are, if we are going to get somewhere. When it just feels so polarized right now, and like there's no way that that's going to happen. But it's like, okay, but if we do want to see change, we have to acknowledge that, and we have to find some common ground first. And it seems like, what do you know, that common ground is how dehumanized we are.
I like story threads, so that's what stuck out to me with the interviews. Kendra's interview, everybody in the rehearsal process, I think, has heard the demo that I made of the Kendra interview and things like that. And it's like, my girlfriend is a Black woman, my mother's a Black woman, my Nana's a Black woman, Maya's a Black woman, but it's like all of these threads throughout this process, I have learned different things about Black women's experience and how they feel safe when they don't feel safe. Like a lot of these things I know, a lot of these things I'm learning as this process has been going on. And there was a lot in the interview with Kendra that inspired me to make that demo. And then not hearing Maya's piece before I made that demo, and then hearing Maya's piece, and it's like, that's so crazy that there's so many themes in what Maya wrote with what Kendra was saying, which what I was trying to narrate through that verse. And it's just like, yo, this is crazy. And it's such a huge problem that all of those things can be disconnected, but be connected at the same time. So yeah, I think that was my biggest thing so far with the interviews.
Yeah, Kendra's interview stuck out to me just because, and just listening to it, you can tell that at first she's very like, oh yeah, like I'm answering your interview questions. And then you ask her about safety, and you see that over time, over the course of the interview, she actually, you can hear it in her voice, like she actually does like relax a little bit and like sit into the questions a little bit more. And you can tell that like she is beginning to feel safe as you guys continue to talk. But like to initially have that guard up is very real. And it was apparent, and it was just like really grounding to hear her be able to like breathe into the interview. Like, okay, like I'm kind of on guard right now, but okay, I'm comfortable. Like, this is cool. And then she was able to open up a little bit more, which was beautiful.
Yeah, I'll say that when, I mean, I'm cheating a little bit because I'm the one doing the interviews, so I've heard a bunch of them, including some I've done in this past week that are just now getting transcribed and put into the Google Drive so y'all can hear it. I had an opportunity to interview a Black female officer from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And she a moment that stood out to me is she described that she was at one of the protests after George Floyd died, as a pedestrian, not as a police officer. And she said there was a moment where she was like walking down this kind of like alleyway that came out to a main street. And on one side of her was the community, you know, Black Lives Matter, mostly wearing the color black. And on the other side were her colleagues, all in blue with their riot gear. And she found herself standing directly in the middle of two sides of her life, clashing in one moment. And she talked about how she kind of had this like outer body experience of realizing that she's stuck in between this really difficult conversation and she doesn't know what to do about it. And one of the things she concludes in an interview is that because it's so difficult being a Black police officer, she's actually leaving the force and getting out of policing altogether because it's too hard, because there's no answer to it for her, it feels like. So she's like, the best thing to do is just leave it all alone. So that's something that just stood out to me, is that kind of going back to what Kevin was saying, is the dehumanizing thing is what happens when you get dehumanized from both sides of you. You start questioning, like, am I even human to anybody then? And like the toll that takes on somebody. And that was just tore me apart to listen to somebody describe that in real time and the way their voice sounds when they start to go down that rabbit hole is something that really stood out to me.
And I'm sorry that she felt that way, that she had to choose between those two sides, but it is a choice that she was able to make because you can take off the uniform. You can't take off your skin.
And she said that. She was, and because I was like, you know, what do you tell all these people who are like doing Black Lives Matter, you know, and marching and all these things? She was like, well, first of all, I look at them and say, this uniform comes off.
Yeah.
I'm one of you first. So there's this really interesting like dynamic that Black police officers have that I think as we move forward into 2022, we're going to explore that a little bit more now that I'm actually getting interviews from those folks. So I think we got a little bit of time left, and I want to talk about this December 8th Works in Progress showing. So on December 8th, we're all going to be together doing this showing and showing this, you know, group of 45 people, hopefully, what we've been working on. What do you think or hope audiences will receive by experiencing this Works in Progress showing?
I think just that, you know, that it's a work in progress, and that there's a many of things that are subjected to change, but like just to be open, come to the process, come in and just watch the thing unfold, and, you know, just experience it. And I hope it is moving to people, even if it's like not what the end product is, that they're at least moved by it, because art should be moving. And I think this is moving. So that's my 2 cents.
I think there's, for me, I think my biggest, what I hope that they take away from this is just some connection. There was something that stopped them or made them think a little bit. I don't care if they maybe tuned it out however long the showing is, but they got like one little thing from it that they held on to. I think for me, that's kind of hope. Even though it is a works in showing, because I think for like, it's obviously not a finished product, but for us being on the inside of this project, we feel like, wow, this is pretty dope. Like, we've got some really powerful stuff in here. So I'm hoping that all of the power that we see or that we feel in it, I'm hoping that even if they don't get all of it, they get a little bit of it. And then we can talk about that and move on from there and figure out how we can.
That's a better way to say it, Kev.
I hope people come and they realize that they're, first of all, that they're seeing some of the best artists in the world, and that's not up for debate. That's not a conversation. Secondly, I hope that they see something in themselves and in their interactions and in their experiences that are educational, that are uncomfortable, that make them want to connect with us more as artists, that make them want to connect more with their community, even if it is just a work in progress. Like I hope that we can all be in the space, those of us presenting the work in progress and all of the folks that are watching it. I hope that we can all be in the space and be open-minded and just, hey, there's going to be some uncomfortable moments and uncomfortable topics. There's going to be some emotional topics. There's going to be some harmonious topics that come up and themes that come up. I just hope that everybody, that we all can be open-minded and, get to the end of the work in progress, and then let's have a conversation. And then we can all work together, audience and artists work together for what the full showing will look like when we get to that point.
And I think you just said it, Floco. Like, I hope that they come and they're open. They're open to understanding either a new perspective or a perspective that is something that they already connect to, and that they're able to kind of take a deeper dive into that with us. I hope that, and like you guys said, this is a work in progress, but I hope that when people come, that they understand that, like, this is real. Like, unlike other shows that I've done, I can say that there's only one other show that I've played myself. Like, this is us, so understanding that this is natural, this is raw, this is real, this is what we're experiencing and how we feel in day-to-day life, yeah, so just coming with an open mind and open heart.
Yeah, and I think kind of connected to that, maybe a little bit more pointed, but like, don't bring your politics, bring your humanity with you. Like, we have never set out to make this divisive, but if you're feeling that way, I think that's internal work that you need to do, because we're talking about a human thing. We're not talking about what side of the line you sit on or choose to sit on, no matter what it is. But I think we're kind of coming towards the end. Meryl, are there any questions that people have for us in these last couple of minutes? And if not, you can kind of take us out.
Okay, so yeah, if you have any more questions, please type them in now. We did have a few in the beginning that I think you guys pretty much answered. That was an amazing discussion. I loved listening to it. I was completely transfixed. Josie Jones she said, wanting to know about the creation and rehearsal process combining so many different artists, which I think you guys discussed really beautifully, and how I loved what Floco said about being stretched, because so many times as artists, like, you're either put in like a little box sometimes, but projects that allow people to really push themselves out of that kind of comfort zone even, I think is really important. Let's see. Lisa Stan King mentioned that she loves your closeness. How has this rehearsal process or process in general brought you all closer just as people? Maybe past like working partners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like really good art and a really good art process, every time you leave a rehearsal, you should know that person across from you a little bit better. And that doesn't always happen, frankly. Most of the time it doesn't happen. But I feel like this has been a process where we by nature do a lot of talking. So what we're doing today is what we do all the time. So I feel like every time I leave a rehearsal with this group of people, I'm like, I feel like I know something about Chris I didn't know before. And that, I think, by nature starts to migrate you into a true ensemble, and it's not forced.
Yeah, Dominic been to my house, so I'll just say that.
And then do you have any idea of what the next steps are? Maybe to this kind of work in progress performance, maybe past it, now that you're are you doing more interviews now? Kind of getting that part of the project underway?
Yeah, so kind of next steps is we have a work in progress showing on December 8th. That stuff will start going out into social media land. So when it goes out, make sure you grab your ticket because I think it's going to fill up pretty fast. We only have about 45 spots for the evening. During that work in progress, you'll be able to see stuff, and you'll also be able to hear some of the interviews, which was pretty cool. Going forward with the project, we know we're doing stuff in 2022. I think the beauty of the way we're doing it is we don't know what it's going to be like. And it's on purpose that way. We have what we have, and come January, February, we might go, let's scrap all that and start over. We might use this as the launch pad for that. We don't know. But the interview process will likely continue all the way through 2022. And then we'll see at the end of 2022 where we're at. The first season of the podcast comes out in April of 2022. And then we're starting a little bit of conversations with Floco about like what a potential inCOPnegro album might look like. So we're talking about like multiple things, like this kind of like, I guess in a capitalistic way, like what is the inCOPnegro brand and the various like products that it creates. So I think it has a lot of life. We're just like allowing ourselves to breathe while we're figuring it out and not like just cranking out stuff.
That sounds amazing. That the concepts can kind of lend itself to so many different things, and it can kind of grow and really have that impact. People are very excited about the idea of an inCOPnegro album, by the way, on Facebook.
Oh, we are talking about Floco Torres, so I mean, what you want?
Okay, well, thank you all so much. So yeah, we'll wrap it up. I'd like to thank Dominic, Chris, Maya, Kevin, and Floco Torres for joining me for this wonderful program and look into the making of inCOPnegro. It's just such an important project, and thank you all very much for your work. Okay, real quick before I sign off, the Akron Soul Train Gallery is open Wednesday through Saturday from 11 to 4 p.m. In downtown Akron. Currently showing, we have resident artist Aaron Foster and the exhibit Reshaping the Narrative, put on by the Akron Black Artists Guild. There's also a film component to that. It's a really amazing show. There's some people in this group that have some photos in there and maybe some interviews, right? So definitely try to come check that out. Both shows will be up until December 18th, and we will be doing virtual walkthroughs of each next week. So if you're viewing now, keep an eye out for that coming next week on Facebook Live as well. And I think that's everything. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you on the next live stream. Bye.